This is the Artist Ultra 16 from XPPEN, a 16-inch 4K OLED drawing display with multi-touch, and it's my current travel companion. Let's set it up and draw some stuff. Hey, Ryan here. So right now I'm busy traveling through Sri Lanka and Bali, and I have to take my work along with me. Normally the iPad Pro is as much as I need, but what if I need something a little bit bigger? I'm traveling with my laptop, I want to work on my desktop apps, and I want to still have some of the features that I'm used to from the iPad, such as the higher resolution and multi-touch. The latest tablet from XPPEN, the Artist Ultra 16, offers precisely that, and it sits in that sweet spot in terms of size, where it gives you ample drawing area while still being quite portable. First, just to let you know, this has been sent to me by XPPEN for the purposes of review. The thoughts here are my own, and if it looks interesting to you, you can find affiliate links down below. That'll really go a long way to help the channel. Now, I am going to be testing this on a Windows 11 laptop, just so you know. I haven't tried it on Mac. And now let's get into it. There's some cool art here, I'm assuming by Mr. Jiang Shan, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who's done the art for a few of XPPEN's products. Of course, we get the 16-inch tablet on top. There's a really nice pen case with the X3 Pro and Pro Slim pens. There's some spare pen nibs, 4 normal and 4 felt. The ACK05 wireless remote for your most used shortcuts. A rather interesting stand, which I'm going to come back to. A variety of adapters and cables for any kind of situation or location. Thank you for the L connector here as well. I really like this. It keeps things much neater. There's also a glove, cleaning cloth, quick start guide, color calibration report, an icon sticker set for your controller, and more nibs. There are actually different sizes here, with the thinner ones being for the slim pen. Taking a closer look at the tablet itself, the overall size is around 40 by 27 centimeters. It's just over 1.3 centimeters thick and weighs around 1.5 kgs. At the base of the screen, we have this rounded bezel. If you're using this at a really shallow drawing angle, then it's a softer edge for your hand to move along. The Artist Ultra 16 is actually quite similar in design to the Artist Pro 16 Gen 2, with a few things moved around a bit. Like the 2 USB-C ports, these are now on the top left rather than in the center. With my laptop, I only need the one, running the tablet on a single USB-C cable. There is the HDMI and USB-A, which combines into a USB-C, and for the extra power that you're going to need, you can connect that into this block along the way on the cable. The buttons for power, adjusting brightness, and toggling touch are shifted to the top right corner, and it's nice to have the brightness buttons right there so that you can change it quickly when you want to. Flipping the tablet over, we have this matte metal alloy backing that sounds kind of plasticky. It feels fine, but when I handle the tablet, there is a slight audible creaking, which makes it sound like the build quality could be a little better. We have rubber feet in the bottom corners and a strip along the top that prevents slipping. And a little closer, you can see these markings. This is to line up the stand. The stand is pretty cool. It comes in this narrow flat metal bar. The stand can be fixed to the back with these adhesive strips. And the legs fold out to 2 different heights. It's an interesting choice to not just keep the legs built in. And for me, the heights for these legs don't really work well. There are no VESA holes, so your only options here, if the height doesn't work for you, is to rest the legs on a block or a desk shelf, or use a stand like this one that gives a much steeper drawing angle. On to the highlight of the Artist Ultra 16, the display. This is a 60Hz 4K OLED display with a 15.6-inch diagonal and a 16:9 aspect ratio. By comparison, the Artist Pro 16 Gen 2 has a 2.5K resolution and a 16:10 aspect ratio. After connecting this, I did notice that the refresh rate can also be 75 Hz with a little asterisk. The glass is nano-etched and anti-glare with an anti-fingerprint coating, so it has a very slight grain to it that makes it feel nicer to draw on than straight glass. It diffuses the light really well, so you're not going to get those harsh reflections from your lights in your room or your windows. Here's a little comparison with other tablets, the Galaxy Tab S9 FE with no matte screen protector, and then the nano-etched glass of the Wacom Move Ink Pad. The display gives a very nice crisp image with great colors. It's Calman-verified, so you can get better accuracy across different monitors, and it's all calibrated at the factory. For color space coverage, you've got 99% Adobe RGB, 99% sRGB, and 98% DCI-P3. And you can change between these profiles in the tablet settings or set your own color profile. Being an OLED display, the contrast is really good and the dark colors are actually dark. Here again, next to the iPad Pro, which has a paper-like protector on it, they're looking quite close. For brightness, it gets 350 nits, which I think is plenty. Indoors, I have this sitting at around 15 to 20% brightness, but when I shift outside, I have to bump that up a bit. While sitting at a bright open cafe, I bumped it up to 50%, but that's while sketching on a light gray background so that it's easier to see as well. It has hardware low blue light certification too, which means that it shouldn't strain your eyes too much during longer drawing sessions. Another feature that sets this apart from the Artist Pro 16 Gen 2 is touch. This isn't really an essential feature, but I really like having it. All my other devices support touch, and it makes it easy for me when I'm doing testing to interact with things without having to find the right pen. And it's really smooth to use too. As you can see here, I've got the iPad Pro again. Both of these are in Magma in the browser, and zoom and rotate is all working quite smoothly. When it comes to palm rejection, this is going to vary probably from one app to the next. In Clip Studio Paint, I had to try really hard to actually get any accidental marks with the side of my hand, but in Magma in the browser, it's a lot easier to get that and have some accidental movement of the canvas too. You could just disable touch entirely, but instead of cutting out one of the main features of the tablet that sets it apart from others, you can just disable finger painting in some of these apps. This makes a big difference to the whole experience. And of course you have the drawing glove too, which has extra padding along the side. I know some people aren't a fan of these, but I find that they work really well for me, especially in these warmer climates. Something I did notice as well, being an OLED screen, you will get some temporary ghost image if you leave the same static contents on the display for a long time. Moving on to the pens, traveling about, a pen case is really important, and the one that comes with the Artist Ultra 16 is quite nice. Inside we have two pens that have the X3 Pro chip in it. One has that standard tapered Pro pen design and the other is a slimmer pen. Both have 16,000 levels of pressure sensitivity, more than enough. I think most people aren't going to notice much difference beyond 8K, perhaps even 4K. What is more important to me is how much force is actually needed to start registering a line. And with these pens, it's nice and low at 3 grams. It's also got 60 degrees of tilt support. The thin pen has 2 separated buttons with no eraser, and the standard pen has 2 buttons together and an eraser on the back, which I hardly ever use. You could either stand the pen up in here, or what I tend to do is just rest the pens on top of the closed case. What I don't like about the case though is this little thing over here. It blocks me from being able to easily remove the slim pen. It's a swappable piece for that pen. If you don't want the buttons, you hit them frequently by accident, then you can switch this out. The pens also register independently in the driver, so they can be customized individually, which is quite nice. You can have one that behaves a certain way for when you're sketching, and the other can behave in a completely different way for painting instead. Let's take a look at the driver before we take the pens for a spin. You need to download this first, and it's where you can customize everything about your tablet. You can make adjustments to the display, like the color space and the brightness. For the pen, of course, you can adjust the pressure curve, add shortcuts to the buttons and such. For touch, there are some gestures that you can change here. So for example, I can assign 3 fingers swipe down to open a custom floating menu, which is new. It's pretty basic in terms of how you can lay this menu out, but like with the pen buttons, you can add all kinds of actions or keyboard shortcuts, which is nice to have for some of those lesser used actions that you might have. You might just have to check that these gestures don't conflict with those in your drawing app of choice. For more frequent shortcuts, you get the ACK05 remote. It has a dial where you can cycle through functions and 10 customizable buttons. You can use it wired or wirelessly, and there is a wireless dongle for it too if you need one. It's fine initially, but you may want to switch over to something a bit more durable down the line. I've seen some complaints about the dial, though I haven't used this long enough to run into those issues myself because I'm using one of these. Okay, let's test out these lines, do some drawing. I've got Clip Studio Paint open for this. First up, I want to check the pressure response, and it looks good. Going from light to heavy and varying how hard I press gets the expected change in size, and it transitions quite smoothly too when I go from heavy to light. I'm using a 100 pixel brush size here, which is big for the canvas, but I can still get that controlled variation in line weight. Trying to keep a consistent pressure, I get consistent thickness of line. Slow diagonals look good to me with no line wobble either. You may notice some slight latency here where my line is trailing a bit behind where my pen is. There is no stabilization active, but this is still a perfectly acceptable amount, and not something you'll really notice. When I do fast lines, they appear normally. Like I said, that initial activation force is nice and low, so I don't have to press hard at all to start getting a line to appear. Just for reference, Huion's Pentec 4.0 claims to have 2 grams of initial activation force, while Wacom says 1 gram of initial activation on their ProPen 2 and 3. Sketching feels good. It handles those fast, sketchy light lines really well. I often seem to grab the slimmer pen for this. It's a bit lighter, feels a bit more like a pencil. With our recent travels, I've been playing around with an idea to bring together some of the stuff that we've seen along the way. The masks in both Sri Lanka and Bali are pretty cool, so I definitely want to do something with those. I did experience some disconnection issues from time to time, but I think this is more of a power issue with my laptop, and maybe all my chaotic multitasking is straining my system a bit. So if you do experience that, maybe you just want to plug in some additional power to the tablet. For painting, I'm hopping on over to Magma. Normally I grab the standard broader pen for painting, which performs exactly the same as a slim pen, but this time I'm going instead with one that isn't included. It's an extra purchase, the X3 Pro Roller. Now I haven't used this a lot, but it is quite nice. It's got a scroll wheel that you can use for adjusting your brush size, for example, and 2 buttons behind that. Where this dial can get quite interesting though is when you use a keybind on the shortcut remote to change the function of this wheel. What's important for this to work though is that the wheel is set to keyboard keys and not to one of the default functions. Now I can press this, and instead of the wheel changing the brush size, it changes the brush opacity because I've set the shortcut for that to be the combination of this plus this. You can do the same thing for the dial on the shortcut remote as well. I don't like cycling through functions, so this way I feel like I can still get more from the remote. I had no issues while painting with this. It's really comfortable to use, the colors look good, I don't have any complaints. Okay, so I did encounter something, and that is with moving around to different locations, unplugging the tablet, plugging it back in, I would sometimes get complete cursor misalignment, or in other cases, the pen would register maximum pressure while just hovering. Thankfully, this was easy to solve. It was just a case of unplugging the tablet, plugging it back in, and that was that. But it happened enough times for me to raise an eyebrow. In terms of heat, it does get a bit warmer up to the top left where the power connects, far from where my hand might be drawing. The drawing angle though, like I mentioned, is just too shallow for me. So I'm mostly using the tablet with this Huion stand. This also lets me use the tablet better as just an extended display when I need that. Now let's talk about portability. As someone who's traveling fairly frequently, that is an important factor for me with any device choice. And the Artist Ultra 16 ranks fairly high in that department. Firstly, the size, like I mentioned, 16 inches is really a sweet spot, and this is roughly the same size as my laptop, so it fits in the same bag easily. Also, getting multi-touch at this size and price, I don't feel like I'm needing to compromise between size and features. Needing only a single USB-C connection keeps my setup simple and tidy. Having a carry case for the pens is a plus too. I know the pens are secure when I'm traveling, and I know exactly where they are. But this is not slim and light in the way that the Wacom Move Ink is, for example. So when it comes to international flights, and how much I typically load into my carry-on luggage, which is near an impractical amount of tech, every few grams counts. And this tablet does push up the weight of things a fair bit. That is largely a me problem. The tablet is still very portable. So to wrap up, I found the Artist Ultra 16 to be a really impressive tablet. The pen performance was solid, the screen is great, the touch response is really smooth, and as a tablet to travel with, it's really not bad if you need this size and quality of display. For many, I think the Artist Pro 16 Gen 2, which costs quite a bit less, is enough. Not everyone is going to want the multi-touch, not everyone will need that more accurate display and the higher resolution, but if you're specifically looking for a 16-inch display with all the bells and whistles at a reasonable price, then the Artist Ultra 16 is definitely one of the top ones to consider. When it comes to durability, I do need a bit more time with this to see how it holds up. Thankfully, I do have a few months of slow travel ahead of me, and this will be my main tablet during that time. So I'll be sure to post an update later. If you have any questions, drop them down below. I'll try to cover that in that video or in my written review. For now though, I'm gonna get back to painting. Ciao for now.